Great win for Villanova over St. John's on Wednesday night. But is it enough to give them the hopes of going dancing? In the immortal words of Home Alone's Kevin McAllister, I don't think so.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Thursday to you. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. It's the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, and you're joining me at the place to get your college hoops content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks so much for making us your first listen or watch of the day. I do want to remind you, you can catch every episode ad-free on Amazon Music. Special shout out to all the everydayers joining us and all the great members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Coming up on the show today, we are going to get bubbly. We're going to try to figure out what in the world Wake Forest and Florida State were doing in the final 13 seconds of that weird game, plus several other bubble games. A crazy game in Lubbock, Texas, where the Red Raiders just had to find a way, and they did, as did the New Mexico Lobos in the pit. I'll get you ready for a couple bubbly Thursday night games. But first, we're going to start in the Big East, where St. John's, number 9 team in the nation, was at Villanova. We know that the Kyle Neptune era has not been great. The biggest win they've got, they beat UConn this year. That was a massive victory for them. But now they pick up a win, an even bigger win this year, and that comes over Rick Pitino and the Johnnies, 73-71 Villanova, a great game. We'll get to the game and the details in a second, but I actually want to start with Villanova and kind of take stock of where the Wildcats are at. Because you look at a win like this, you think, oh man, they've got that UConn win, they've stacked that. Is this putting them into bubble consideration? I mean, I guess technically everyone is. And if you're a mid-tier Big East team, you're probably going to be in some level of bubble consideration. Sure, absolutely. I would say right now, and I would say when we get to Selection Sunday, that they're going to be on the outside looking in. That's what I've got for Villanova. I think we ultimately get 4 Big East teams, the teams that are at the top right now, St. John's, Creighton, Marquette, and UConn. But the bubble, let's be honest, it's enough right now that you just never know. So if Villanova can find a way to keep winning, maybe it's there. But as I look at it right now, I just don't see it. They're 15-10 overall, 8-6 in Big East play. As I said, wins over both UConn's and St. John's. The problem right now is that UConn win is actually only a quad 2 victory right now. Now, it's barely. It'll probably flip back to a quad 1 win, particularly now that Liam McNeely's back for UConn. That's a big deal. But for the time being, this St. John's win is the only quad 1 win on Villanova's resume. They were 0-5 in quad 1 coming in. The other and bigger problem for Villanova is not their lack of quad 1 wins. It's the number of quad 3 and quad 4 losses that they have, because all of these data points make up the picture of your resume. So Villanova, 3-2 in quad 3, 6-1 in quad 4. So 2 quad 3 losses and 1 quad 4 loss. Those games can't help you at all. Literally all they can do is hurt you. And Nova has been hurt 3 times by them. That to me is why when you look at Big East teams and you're like, but wait a second, Isaac, Villanova is ahead of Xavier in the standings. Sure, but Xavier doesn't have those kind of losses. So that's why X is on the bubble. And I would say Villanova isn't. So there is that. And as I look back at Villanova, I'm curious where their non-conference strength of schedule is. I didn't actually look at that. Villanova, 327. There you go. That's all you need to know right now. That's not going to do it. That's another problem. Like, if it's close for the bubble teams, they're almost unequivocally, without fail, going to favor teams that have a stronger non-conference strength of schedule. And that's clearly not where Villanova is at. Now, did you realize, here's what's interesting. Villanova's offense, man, they're great. 4th nationally in 3-point percentage, at 40.2, and they're fifth nationally in free throw percentage at 80.8%. The offense is 15th in offensive efficiency at KenPom. That's really good. The big problem in terms of gameplay, I'm not talking resume now, but what they actually do on the floor, is that Villanova is 142nd in defensive efficiency at KenPom. That's just simply not good enough. All right, let's get to the game. It was a weird game flow in Villanova's win over St. John's. Villanova and Cal Neptune, they don't care about weird. Eric Dixon, Wooga Poplar and company, they just want to win these games, and that's what they did. But first 9.5 minutes of this game, like basically the first quarter of this game, neither team led by more than 4 points. But then Nova builds a 7-point lead. Nobody scores for 2 minutes. Villanova gets a 3, leads by 10. Nobody scores for 2 minutes. And then St. John's goes on this 10-2 run over the final 3:49 to cut the lead back down to 2 at the half. It was an odd first half, but the second half really started to mimic it in a lot of ways. It was really tight for the first 7 minutes of the second half. Villanova opens up yet again a double-digit lead, an 11-point lead with 9:56 to go. And then St. John's, man, we just get that Rick Pitino pressure, and before you have blinked, they have gone on a 14-0 run to cut an 11-point deficit and turn it into a 3-point lead. It took exactly 3 minutes and 2 seconds. That is 182 seconds. I know how to do math. I'm great at it. I mean, that is crazy. And at that point, I don't know if you were watching this game in real time. For me in real time, I was like, oh, that's it. All St. John's had to do was get back in the lead. Now they're going to come back and find a way to win this game down the stretch. But they just couldn't. They could not do it. Because then Villanova responds with their own 9-2 run. It's keyed by Eric Dixon. Had 2 threes back-to-back. He did not have a great game by his standards, but those 2 threes I thought were really key down the stretch. They go up 68-64 with 3:22 to go. And then we just kind of trade buckets back and forth. And then Simeon Wilcher, there's a great play design, gets him a 3 out on the wing. I mean, it is beautiful and pure, sets his feet, buckets. That was with 28 seconds to go. It puts St. John's up 71-70. I was like, that might be the dagger right there. Because I don't know, maybe you can find something with Dixon, but they'd been trying to isolate Dixon one-on-one a lot down the stretch. And St. John's was putting up great defense. Nobody was coming to help or cutting or screen or anything. And so I was like, I just don't know if Villanova's got anything, but they did. Tyler Perkins for 3 for the final score of the game. Simeon Wilcher misses another 3 at the buzzer, and that's that. Congrats to the Wildcats. A big time win. Maybe, at the time we said the UConn win was maybe the biggest win of the Kyle Neptune era. Given what St. John's is this year, this actually is probably the biggest win of the Kyle Neptune era. So again, or not again, I just want to say something new. I know St. John's loses this game, but I just got to tell you, it does my heart so good to see that Rick Pitino pressure back at this high major level, man. I just loved it at Louisville. Just see them go crazy and annoy teams. Or back at Kentucky, absolutely loved it. And I know we could watch it at Iona too, but it's just different when it's high major athletes doing it. And so that, gosh, and as I said, it keyed that 14-0 run that St. John's had. So I know they lose the game, but it just, man, I'm reminded how happy it makes me. And so there you go with that. Also, Kaderi Richmond really is finally starting to come along really strong for St. John's. It took some time to get going, but I really feel like he's found out who he needs to be, and Rick Pitino's found out how to use him. And really good. I mean, he's just so strong. He's a dude, and it's great. What's funny, though, we haven't even talked about the leading scorers in this game, because for St. John's, it was not Kaderi Richmond. It was not R.J. Lewis or Zuby Ejiofor or Simeon Wilcher, but it was Aaron Scott and his 22 points. I mean, he was raining it in from 3. Not very efficient, 5 of 13, but still, he was efficient from the floor in totality, 8 of 16, right at 50%. And then for Villanova, it was Wooga Poplar, 22 points on 9 of 14 shooting, 2 of 4 from 3, perfect at the free throw line in 2 attempts, and 6 rebounds. That was just 2 off his Villanova high. He's had great games against St. John's both times, 22 points in both of those. And again, because part of this and why this was so important is because Eric Dixon wasn't very efficient in his shooting. 17 points, yeah, but it took him 17 shots to get there. Just 5 of 17 from the field, 3 of 10 from 3, and only 4 of 7 at the free throw line. But again, they win because they as a team did enough. Quick Big East update then following this game, because remember, the top 4 have all been playing each other, and then Villanova gets this win over St. John's, which is outside that top 4. But remember that on Tuesday night, UConn knocked off Creighton. Otherwise, we'd be staring at things being really tight at the top. So right now, coming into Thursday, St. John's leads the Big East 12-2, then Creighton 11-3, Marquette 10-4, UConn tied in the loss column with Marquette, but one fewer win at 9-4. And just to know where Villanova's at, they're keeping touch in 5th place at 8-6. So Creighton, had they beaten UConn on Tuesday night, would be tied with St. John's right now, 12-2. And why would that be all the more awesome? Because those teams are playing each other this weekend, and I cannot wait. It's going to be great. I love a good regular season matchup with first place on the line, and I wish we were getting it. But that's that. So I went through of the top 4 in the Big East, St. John's, Creighton, Marquette, UConn, and looked at all 4 of their remaining schedules just to see who's got the upper hand down the stretch based on on paper, easier schedule, on paper, more difficult schedule. It's actually Creighton that I think has the easiest remaining schedule. Again, as I said, they're at St. John's this weekend, but then after that, here's the rest of Creighton's closing run. Versus Georgetown, versus DePaul, at Xavier. That's going to be a big-time bubble game for Xavier, by the way. At Seton Hall, and then hosting Butler. You get past that St. John's, all of those are very winnable games. After Creighton, I think UConn has the second easiest of these teams, St. John's, and then I think Marquette has the toughest closing stretch of the 4 of them. Why? They host Seton Hall, then they got to go to Nova, which as we see is a difficult place. They host Providence, then they're at Georgetown, at UConn versus St. John's. So close at UConn hosting St. John's. Good luck to you, Marquette, who's been struggling lately already anyway. I think they're going to probably wind up being 4th out of these 4 teams. And potentially, depending on how Villanova does, and Xavier might fall even further. So now it's time for us to get bubbly. And man, I tell you what, there were 2 games in particular I had my eye on Wednesday night, but we have to start in Winston-Salem, where they were truly, truly heinous, what are you doing moments, all packed into just the final 13 seconds of this game. We'll get to that and Missouri's blowout of Oklahoma in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel. Hey, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off, and you're like, shoot, I guess I'm out of luck tonight, or you want to bet on a 4th quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for an even bigger payout, you can combine some of these live bets into a same-game parlay. It's great because when you win, you get paid instantly. We were just talking St. John's and the Big East. The Johnnies have the 8th best odds at FanDuel to reach the Final Four, plus 600. Man, that's crazy. They were nowhere close to that to start the season. Auburn leads the way, by the way, in those odds, minus 125, followed by Duke, minus 110, Alabama, plus 150, and then Houston at plus 190. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you need any argument, don't expand the NCAA tournament. Look no further than the bubble, where there are teams that I would call not good that are in legitimate contention for the 2025 NCAA tournament, right? It's like at some point, somebody's got to separate themselves, right? Either just don't lose or whatever it is. But I mean, goodness gracious. And I got to start bubbly wise in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where on Wednesday night, Florida State beat the Demon Deacons 72-70. And if you don't know what happened in this game, it might, just even seeing the score, you might be like, oh man, that's not good for Wake Forest. Oh, just wait. By the way, from a resume, from a postseason tournament standpoint, this is crushing, yes, for Wake Forest, who came into this last four in at ESPN's bracketology with Joe Lunardi. They were a little more safe in Mike DeCourcy's at Fox, a little more safe in Jerry Palm's at CBS. But the reason I say this is a crushing blow for them is because coming into this game, the best thing going for Wake Forest resume-wise was no bad losses. They had no quad 3, no quad 4 losses prior to this. And they were 1-6 in quad 1. So not great, but they had a win and a perfect 5-0 in quad 2. And by the way, that one win in quad win is looking better and better and better because that is over Michigan. But now that's no longer true. There's a quad 3 loss on Wake Forest resume thanks to this loss to Florida State. And here's how it happened. You guys, I'm in pain thinking about it. Forest is up 14 at the half, 35-21. Their biggest lead was 16. Multiple times throughout the second half, they're up 16. They're still up 16 with 8:10 to go. Yes, you heard me right. 8 minutes and 10 seconds to go in this game. The Wake Forest Demon Deacons are leading at home by 16 against Florida State, who's okay. 61-45 is the score. From there, Florida State goes on a quick 9-0 run. It's a 14-2 extended run to cut it to 4 points with 3:22 to go. Then Florida State just keeps on pushing. With 32 seconds left, they tie it up at 67. At that point, it's a 22-6 run for the Seminoles. They get a beautiful slob play, sidelines out of bounds, to get at that point, it's Wake Forest gets a beautiful slob play that gets Efton Reed a dunk. It's some really nice back and forth. Go watch that. Nice dunk. That puts Wake back up by 2. They still haven't trailed at this point in the second half. There's 24 seconds to go. And then Florida State takes the lead down on the other end with a wide open 3 from Taylor Bowen, 70-69 Noles. 15 seconds to go. This is their first lead of the game since it was 13-10 back in the first half. So here's where things get like, oh my word. With both of these teams, it's not just Wake Forest in choking this game away. It's Florida State too, who somehow managed to survive their boneheadedness here. So if allowing that Florida State run wasn't bad enough already, I mean, it is sheer pain in these final 13 seconds. So Bowen hits that 3 with 15 seconds to go to put Florida State up 1. Again, for the first time since it was 13-10. Tyler Johnson, poor guy, just lost his head. Takes the inbound after that made 3 from Florida State, somehow is not aware of time or score, which you have to be. My goodness, dude, you're a team on the bubble fighting for your life in a conference that doesn't give you many opportunities to get good wins, but it gives you a lot of opportunities to take a quad 3 loss like this. So Tyler Johnson comes down the floor. And keep in mind, they are down only 1 point. They got no timeout, so they can't call a timeout, but they're down 1 point. Plenty of time to set up a play and get a good look. Instead, Tyler Johnson pulls up from the logo. So the Wake Forest logo, there's the F on this side of the court, which is way out there. He pulls from like the corner of the F with still 10 seconds left in the game. Plenty of time to, get Hunter Salas the ball, or, I don't know, maybe let's get Cam Hildreth the ball. So it's just like, I'm like, Tyler Johnson, what are we doing here? There's so much time. And also, you don't even need a 3. You only need a 2 in this scenario, or just like get to the rim, get fouled, and you only have to make one of those to tie. I was just, what are we doing? Well, it gets worse because then we have a Florida State. What are you doing? After he takes his 3, which of course misses because, come on, bro, what are we doing? Florida State gets a breakaway. Remember, Florida State is winning at this point. Again, time and score. You got to know what's going on. So instead of just running out the clock, because Justin Thomas has the ball with like 2 seconds left, there's not a Demon Deacon close enough to touch him. Just run out the clock and you're good. Instead, he goes straight to the rim and dunks it. At this point, it's only still a 1-possession game. You're now up 3. 72-69. What are you doing? I compare this to like, at the end of a football game, if the defense, that team is like, we got to get the ball back. Let's let them score and then see what we can do. Like, so Olay, and an unwise football player will go ahead and score and celebrate and think he's done something instead of taking a knee. Why? Because time matters more than points here when you've got the lead already, which for some reason I don't know, Justin Thomas just didn't know. You don't need points here. You need to run the clock out, because if they don't get the ball back, they can't win. You could literally end the game, but you don't recognize time and score. But he dunks, and it gives Wake Forest a last gasp hope. One more time, we get a "what are you doing?" This is the third "what are you doing" of these final 13 seconds for FSU. And then, oh man, I feel so bad for him on the Wake Forest side. So Daquan Davis, for some reason, fouls Cam Hildreth, basically like with 0.3 of a second left in this game at half court. Now, you're up 3 points. I get it. If you want to foul to stop him from getting a shot like Caleb Loves from Arizona to beat Iowa, or send that game to overtime against Iowa State the other day, sure, that's fine. But he's in the act of shooting. So Cam Hildreth, an 84% free throw shooter, now gets to go to the line with a chance to tie this game with 0.3 of a second left. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? But, oh, Cam Hildreth, you have to feel so bad for him. Misses the first of these free throws, then makes the second, then he's got to miss the third one to try to get a tip in or something. And, I mean, that's it. So all told, it is a 27-9 closing run over the final 8 minutes and 3 seconds for Florida State, who tried to throw the game away here in the final seconds, and just Wake Forest couldn't take advantage of it, unfortunately for the fighting Steve Forbes. So that is a bubblicious game that unfortunately went the wrong way for Wake, and so we'll have to see how that's going to affect them going forward. A couple other bubble results really quick. Mizzou smashes Oklahoma. Oklahoma's the bubble team in this scenario. Mizzou pretty safely in right now. 82-58 for the Tigers, who led basically wire to wire in this game, double digits for essentially the last 30 minutes of the game. Career high 25 points for Mark Mitchell. That's what I expected from him, leaving Duke to come to Mizzou. But it's been a bunch of guys for this team. So it's just one of those any given night kind of teams, including going 13 of 18 at the free throw line. This, again, remember, this is a much needed win for the Tigers, who had lost back-to-back very tight games, 85-81 to Tennessee last week. And then that was at home. And then by 3 to A&M on a Wade Taylor 4-3 right at the end of that game. So, I mean, two just like losses for Mizzou, but 18-6 overall, 7-4 now, 6th in the SEC, a half game back of Ole Miss. I think they're sitting in pretty good shape as far as SEC schedules go. They do still have Alabama and Kentucky on paper, but those are both at home, and those are the two toughest games remaining for Mizzou. Other than that, they're at Georgia, at Arkansas, hosting South Carolina, at Vandy, at Oklahoma. So all 5 of those are very winnable games. The problem is 4 of them are on the road, but as SEC schedules go, you'll absolutely take that. As for the Sooners, man, like, it's a different story than Mizzou, but same stories themselves from last season, where they started 10-0 and then finished 20-11, 8-10 overall, lost in the first round of the Big 12 tournament, and that was it. This year, they start better, 13-0. It's a perfect non-con run for Oklahoma. Literally 13-0 through all of the non-cons. Since then, they've gone 3-8 in SEC play. Ken Pom projects them to go 2-5 the rest of the way. So if that plays out as it's written, they go from 13-0 overall to 18-13, and then just 5-13 in SEC play. And that 13-0 isn't going to save them, because like we said about Villanova earlier, their non-conference strength of schedule is 316th in the nation. Just simply not good enough when it comes down to it, and then didn't win enough projecting to not win enough in the SEC. The other 3 bubbly games I had my eyes on Wednesday night. Arkansas hosting LSU. Arkansas, a bubbly team somehow. You got to get 68 teams in, I guess. Hogs win 70-58. It's great. They're starting to trend in the right direction. We'll see what happens. VCU at George Washington. VCU wins 80-72. And then Xavier, I mentioned it earlier, at Providence. X wins 91-82. So that's that. That's your bubbly results for Wednesday night. Now, things got absolutely wild in Lubbock, Texas on Wednesday night, as we saw the Red Raiders win a game they just simply couldn't lose. And the New Mexico Lobos followed suit just a little bit later. We'll get to those conversations in just a second. Arizona State heads to Lubbock, Texas on Wednesday night. The 12th ranked Red Raiders. Still crazy that they're doing that well. You love to see it. Texas Tech escapes this thing 111 to 106 in double OT. Arizona State, not good. 3 wins in Big 12 play. And without Jaden Quaintance coming into this game, he had tweaked his left ankle against Oklahoma State the other day and just wasn't even able to travel for this game. And I tell you what, there are games in conference play that you just simply got to gut out and find a way. The best teams find a way to do that, and that's what Texas Tech did in this one. And interestingly, this year, Texas Tech, it's more about their offense than their defense. But it was their defense that helped them really, really win this game down the particularly in overtime. Really nice possessions to stop Arizona State. Now, part of that is Arizona State loses a key guard late. And Coach McCaslin said post-game, like, hey, our defense was not where it needed to be throughout most of this game. So it's really good that they were able to get that. Let's not bury the lead any longer. JT Toppin, 41 points on 17 of 22 shooting. 1 of 1 from 3, 6 of 11 from the free throw line, 15 boards, 7 of those were offensive, 2 blocks, 3 steals. Oh my word. I mean, I've been all in on JT Toppin for quite a while now, since last year. We're about to talk New Mexico, since last year when he played at New Mexico. But his previous career high coming into this was 27, 41 in this game. And yes, I know there were 10 extra minutes of game time, but still, if I remember correctly, he had set a new career high by the end of regulation. By the way, 41 points is the highest single player total in the Big 12 this season. And I love what Grant McCaslin said post-game to CBS Sports' Gary Parrish. He said JT Toppin, getting buckets, but he's more excited about getting stops at the end of the game. Man, that is a player that could come be on my team any day of the week. By the way, I love Grant McCaslin. He is a fiery coach. He's got great energy, not in like a jerk sort of way, just like passionate sort of way. And it's the kind of thing, how could you not love it and get behind it? He finished his interview with Gary Parrish. Then he runs to the student section, dives in with those. I mean, it's just great. And if he's your coach, you love it. Absolutely love it. And look, while I want to make sure we're giving JT Toppin all the flowers he deserves, I thought freshman guard Christian Anderson was critical for Texas Tech in the 2 overtimes. Just go back, watch those 2 watch those 2 5 minutes of game time action, just making winning plays. It's not even that he did like that he scored 80 million points. It's just he's in like multiple dimes that were beautiful. Had a nice hostage dribble that was what fouled out. I can't even remember who it was now. From Tech that fouled out, whatever. Oh, it was Alton Mason that fouled out. And it was because of Christian Anderson knocking balls away, getting loose balls, assists, getting the free throw. I mean, just all sorts of great stuff from him. And I thought he was key in overtime, man. Really, really good stuff there for Arizona State. As for Texas Tech, they've now won 8 of 9. Their lone loss in that stretch was at Arizona, who's playing some of the best basketball in the nation right now, in my opinion. They're 19-5 overall, 10-3 in Big 12 play. And honestly, similar to what I said about Mizzou and the SEC, Texas Tech's closing stretch in Big 12 play is not that crazy to have to deal with. They got 7 games left. Their next 3 are at Oklahoma State, at TCU, hosting West Virginia. And then their 2 toughest games kind of sandwiched in there. They host Houston, then they got to go to Kansas. And then their closing games are hosting Colorado, and then at Arizona State, which I know this game was tough with Arizona State, but we'll see what happens. But I think a manageable closing stretch for Texas Tech, who should be able to position themselves really nicely, not only for the Big 12 tournament, but also for the big dance NCAA tournament. So really, really, really good stuff there. It's funny. Go look at the Big 12 standings right now. It's literally the top 6 are all like 1 game off of each other. Houston's 12-1, and then you just work your way down 11-2, 10-3, all the way to Baylor, BYU, and K-State, all tied at 7-6. Texas Tech right now is 3rd at 10-3. So it's going to be a very interesting close to the Big 12 stretch. I mentioned New Mexico basically had to do the same thing. They were down a lot of this game, to Wyoming, hosting Wyoming in the pit. Lobos win 71-67. Here's what you need basically what you need to know. The Lobos led this game for a grand total of 66 seconds compared to Wyoming's 35 minutes and 19 seconds. But that was enough. As long as one of those seconds is when the game is done, you're the winner. So New Mexico is now 13-1 in Mountain West play, just the 5th team ever to start off that well. And something to keep an eye on, Donovan Dent kind of had a gimpy left ankle. We'll see how he's doing for New Mexico. I'll tell you what, Milicevic had a crazy 3 with about 30 seconds to go. They just swirled around for some of the final points of the game to put them up 68-65. And then just some free throws, and that's about it. Nelly Jr. Joseph had a massive block with 15 seconds to go, and really, really good stuff. And what I love about it, it sets up a huge Mountain West showdown this weekend. New Mexico, Utah State in the pit. Come on, that's going to be great. This weekend is low dead with a capital dead, because that's what I'm going to be with how excited I am. By the way, if you didn't see the end of the TCU Oklahoma State game, you need to go check that out. We had some Christian Laettner, Grant Hill kind of business, much lower stakes, obviously, but doing it. TCU down 72-70 with like a couple ticks left on the clock. We get a Jace Posey full court pass to just outside the 3-point line. Vashawn Alette comes down with it, turn 3-pointer buckets, and they win 73-72 at home over the Pokes. Crazy stuff there. Thursday, very quickly, not much, but we do have a couple games and an important bubbly game for the Cornhuskers, who are hosting the Nebraska Cornhuskers, number 25, Maryland, tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on Big Ten Network. FanDuel has it Huskers minus half a point. I mean, this is a critical Big Ten game, not only for Maryland, but also for Nebraska's tournament hope. So if you are a bubble team, you are big Terps fans tonight. Join SVP in cheering on the Fightin' Derek Queens. Number 14, Memphis at South Florida, 9 p.m. ESPN2, Memphis minus 8.5 at FanDuel. The game that Big Ten game I'm really excited about, but also this West Coast game that is late. Get a nap in right now. San Francisco Dons at Gonzaga, 11 Eastern, ESPN. FanDuel has it, though, Gonzaga minus 13.5. Both of these teams are 2 games behind St. Mary's in the loss column in the WCC. San Francisco 10-3, Gonzaga 9-3. So the winner's going to have a leg up. The loser basically done with regular season championship hope. So one of these teams going to basically play themselves out of that regular season hope. We'll see what happens there. Woo! I told y'all, man, a fun Wednesday night, not as loaded as of a slate as Tuesday night was, but still, man, college basketball delivers night after night after night after night. So great. Thank you for tuning in. On Friday, Andy and I are going to actually record live Friday morning on YouTube instead of recording Thursday for Friday. So make sure you tune in with us. It's going to be 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, 8 Pacific, whatever time zone you're thinking about. That's where we'll be. Come join us live on YouTube. Bring some comments. We're going to get you ready for what is going to be a crazy weekend of college hoops. If you've not subscribed to the show on video and audio, make sure you do that right there. Hit subscribe down on YouTube. We're inching closer and closer to 4,000. Would be great to get there by the end of this season. If you've not joined the Locked On College Basketball Discord community, we'd love to have you there as well. Free to join. That link is in the show notes. All right, guys, as always, apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Popes. Shouts to Mick Bruins. And until Friday, peace.